Hello, everybody. I'm Bailey Leisure, and today I will be talking about sports. Yes, for the first time in what feels like forever. With sports, live sports being shut down due to the times that we're in right now. A live sporting event happened with no actual sports. But one of the biggest events that happened in football every year is the 2020 NFL Draft. While it was not held in Las Vegas in front of a big crowd due to the times that we're in right now, it did happen virtually and at home. It took place over the last couple of days. The draft just ended as I'm recording this video, so I'm going to talk about. I'm going to do a couple different videos on this, probably 3, maybe 2. As I'm going to be talking about the NFL draft. This video will be on the first round and some of my reactions on the picks that were taken Thursday. Just a disclaimer, I will not be talking about every first round draft pick that happened in this year's draft. If they're draft picks I don't talk about, leave in the comment section below, and I'll give you my thoughts on those draft picks that I did not talk about. So to start off with the first overall pick that happened in this draft, it was pretty obvious who was getting picked first overall as Joe Burrow, the quarterback from LSU, who won the national championship this year, as well as the Heisman Trophy, went first overall with the Bengals. The Ohio native went there. As far as my concerns on that the Bengals have a lot of room to improve on with their roster, but obviously when you're trying to rebuild a team or make a team better, you start with the quarterback. You always look at that. They could have taken some other players, and Joe Burrow wasn't even on draft boards ranked as the top player last year. It kind of reminds me of what happened with Nick Bosa last year. He was the first overall player ranked, but didn't go number 1. But Joe Burrow, he went number 1. I give the pick an A. Obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals need to improve at the quarterback position. They have a lot more room to improve on, but this is a start, and this is for the Bengals to be competitive again. I think it's going to take a couple off seasons to accomplish that, but an A nonetheless. And then the number 2 draft pick was pretty obvious as well, as Chase Young, defensive end out of Ohio State, went to the Washington Redskins. This is the second year in a row a top defensive player went number 2, who probably could have went number 1. Was probably the best player ranked in the draft, as Nick Bosa did this last year with the San Francisco 49ers. But, the Redskins, they made it well aware that they were, not doing anything tricky or throwing smoke screens. They knew they were taking this guy all along, and it's okay to go with the obvious picks. And, he's one of the best players in this draft, probably, in my opinion, the best player that's coming out of this draft, as he goes number 2. I give the grade an A. So number 3 is where things start to get interesting. Now, I kind of knew who the Detroit Lions were going to take, but there was a lot of rumors, days prior to the draft that, the Lions were opening them up to potentially move down in the draft and, maybe get more draft picks. There was a lot of talk about that, but the Lions, they stood their ground at number 3. They took Jeff Okudah, cornerback out of Ohio State. The Lions, they let some players go at free agency. One of their big players that they let go was Darius Slay. They need help at that secondary position, and I think they got a good, solid player in Jeff Okudah from Ohio State. I give this grade a B+. The Miami Dolphins had a busy first round with 3 draft picks, and the biggest question that people had was what they were going to do. There was rumors that they were going to move up to take an offensive tackle. There was rumors they were going to take a different quarterback than the player that everybody thought they were going to go at. We're definitely going to get draft. They were going to move down. I mean, there were so many rumors of what the Miami Dolphins were going to do at number 5, but they stood their ground at number 5, and they took the player everybody thought they were going to go after, which was Tagovailoa. Excuse me if I'm saying his last name wrong. The quarterback from Alabama, who there was definitely some question marks with him because of his injury history and what happened in his last season in college football, with the broken hip. There's still some injury concerns there, but according to doctors, he's good to go. He went to the Miami Dolphins at number 5. The Miami Dolphins got an offensive tackle, though, despite not taking one higher. But at number 18, they got Austin Jackson, offensive tackle out of USC. And then at the end of the round, they took a cornerback at number 30, Noah Igbinoghene. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong again. The cornerback out of Auburn. As far as the Tua grade, I give that a B. While it's a good draft pick, it's definitely a very risky pick. I feel like with him and Burrow, the comparisons, Burrow's probably a safer draft pick, but Tua probably maybe has the better upside. But there's some risk with how many injuries Tua's had, so that it prevented me from going with an A. Austin Jackson out of USC, there probably could have been some better offensive tackles they could have taken, and maybe they could have traded up to get another offensive tackle. But I give it a B minus, and then. The player out of Auburn, I don't have much knowledge on him, but, they could use some secondary help. They paid a lot of money for Byron Jones, so improving that secondary as the AFC East, because the departure of Tom Brady is very much wide open, so the Miami Dolphins will look to be competitive next season. So as far as the Auburn pick, I give it a C+. So at number 6, it was the end of an era for the Chargers this offseason as they moved on from Phillip Rivers, who had spent a decade and a half with the team. You knew they were with only Tyrod Taylor as the only quarterback on the roster for the Chargers. They were going to take another quarterback, and that they did. They took Justin Herbert, quarterback out of Oregon, who many people thought was going to go. Maybe the Dolphins were going to pick him. There was rumblings that the New York Giants at number 4 they were going to take him potentially. There was rumors that they were going to look at him, but he went to the Chargers. I give it a B. Quarterbacks out of Oregon haven't been really successful in a really long time. But the Chargers did need a young quarterback, and Herbert's got some upside, so I give the grade a B. At number 7, the Carolina Panthers selected Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn. As far as this pick is concerned, I think it's a good pick, but I think they left the best defensive player on the board with this draft pick. The Carolina Panthers lost a lot of players in the offseason. It's really kind of a transitional period for them, with a lot of familiar faces gone from the franchise, including Luke Kuechly. On the linebacker. So I think they could have taken there's one player that I'm going to talk about in a minute that I think they should have taken, but they definitely need help on the defensive line as well. So that's why I give it a B, because the Panthers did take a good player and they did address a need, but I think they could have addressed another need, and it would have been a much better draft pick with the pick that was made after this for the Panthers. So number 8, the player that the Panthers probably should have taken, and maybe even the New York Giants could have taken him, was Isaiah Simmons. He was selected at number 8 by the Arizona Cardinals. His initial position is linebacker, but the rumors and what I've kind of evaluated is that this guy can play all around the defense. And that he does. He could play in the secondary. He could maybe even be an edge rusher. You can put him at any linebacker. Maybe you can set him up as a corner. But as far as this grade, I think this was one of the biggest steals of the draft. I give this grade an A+. The Arizona Cardinals, were one of the worst defensive teams last year, and I think the areas that they needed to address in this draft was offensive line and defense, and I think they did. I think they made the right choice selecting defense first. Simmons is, a lot of talent. I think he's got some great upside. I think the biggest concern for the Cardinals definitely is where are they going to put him, on that field. But he's a very talented player, and the Cardinals got a really good draft pick in this one. So number 9, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected C.J. Henderson, cornerback out of Florida. As far as this pick is concerned, obviously this is the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. Saxonville, as they were called a couple of years ago, is very, very different than what it once was. Jalen Ramsey's gone, A.J. Bouye is gone, Calais Campbell, their Yannick Ngubiki, if I'm probably saying that wrong, he's probably on his way out. So a lot of players are gone from that. They obviously needed to, fix the secondary. I don't know much about him, but I think this is one of the positions they needed to address, and they did that. And I give the grade a B. I think it's a good pick for them. So at number 10, the Cleveland Browns selected Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle from Alabama. The Cleveland Browns, one of the biggest concerns was for them last year, in a very disappointing year where they thought they were going to contend in that division and make the playoffs for the first time in a decade and a half. One of the biggest concerns for them was the offensive line, and Baker Mayfield got sacked a lot. So that was going to be their biggest concern, and I think they addressed that very well with this pick. I give it a B+. I think, Cleveland, I don't know if they'll be competitive next year. I think their offense has to do much better, and they have to protect Baker Mayfield. But so they still have a lot more work to do, but I think it's a good pick, and it addresses a big need for the Browns. This draft was really deep at the wide receiver position, especially in the first round, and at number 11, one of the big wide receivers was taken at number 11 as the Oakland Raiders selected Henry Ruggs, wide receiver out of Alabama. Obviously, this is a position the Raiders probably needed to address. I give it a B-. I think he's a good player, but I don't know if I would have taken him at number 11. I think there was CeeDee Lamb, there was Jerry Judy. So there's some good wide receivers available, and nothing against Henry Ruggs. I think he's a good player, but I just don't think the Raiders took the. I think Lamb and Judy are much better wide receivers, if you ask me. So not a bad choice, but there were better receivers available at number 11. So after the first 12 picks of this draft, there were no trades that happened, and that's the first time I think in a while that's happened. But at number 13, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traded up one spot with the San Francisco 49ers. They went from 14 to number 13. I have no clue why they traded up one spot, as they took one of the better offensive tackles that was available, Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle out of Iowa. The trade itself, I don't know why they trade up one spot, but the pick I think is really good. I think he's one of the best offensive tackles in this draft. Obviously that was a big concern for the Buccaneers last year was the offensive line, and especially with Tom Brady now there at the age of 43, that's going to be one of the biggest areas of concern for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Prior to this, the Buccaneers, a couple of days prior, Rob Gronkowski came out of retirement, and they acquired him from the Patriots for, I think, a fourth-round pick. So, Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski will be reunited, and the Buccaneers, are looking to be very competitive next season, and, it was a good pick for them to get Wirfs to solidify that offensive line. So, at number 14, the San Francisco 49ers selected Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle from South Carolina. This was probably the DeForest Buckner replacement after he was traded for a first-round pick to the Indianapolis Colts. Initially, I didn't like the pick, but as I thought about it more, I think it is a pretty good pick actually for the 49ers. I think they could have. They had another draft pick early, later in this round, and I think they could have taken, somebody else, to be honest. But I think Kinlaw is a good player, and this is a team that I think is defense first, if you ask me, as they had one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. So they were able to replace a hole that they had on defense, and I think they're going to have a really good defense next season as well. So I give the grade a B. Some of these wide receivers that were being drafted were drafted much lower than I thought they were going to be drafted. At number 15, the Denver Broncos selected Jerry Judy, the wide receiver out of Alabama. I thought he was going to go much higher, to be honest, but regardless of that, I think it's a great pick for the Denver Broncos. They definitely, I think they're looking to, with a young quarterback in Drew Lock, hopefully he can, make that next step and be a solid starting quarterback. And I think they gave him a really good weapon to work with in Jerry Judy. So I give this pick an A+. The next wide receiver that was selected at number 17, the Dallas Cowboys selected CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver out of Oklahoma. There was rumors about where this guy was going to go. There was obviously a big connection with Kyler Murray, the Arizona Cardinals quarterback. And prior to the DeAndre Hopkins trade, there was rumors that the Cardinals were going to select him there. But the Cardinals, obviously, they got Hopkins, so they didn't really had a need for the wide receiver position anymore. And he fell in this draft. I thought he was going to be at least inside the top 15, but he fell to number 17. And I hate to admit it, but the Dallas Cowboys, this is a really good pick, and they have a great wide receiver trio now with Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb. So as much as I hate to admit it, I got to give props to Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. I give this pick as well an A+. The wide receivers kept coming, as at number 21, the Philadelphia Eagles selected Jalen Reagor, wide receiver out of TCU. I'm not big on this draft pick. I think there were better wide receivers still available. And plus there was rumors going into this, prior to the first round happening that, the Eagles were trying to trade up to get CeeDee Lamb, and I don't know why they didn't do that. And not only that, the player that you were targeting, he ends up going to your division rival in the Cowboys. So, I don't know much about him. They addressed the position they needed, but I don't know if they got the wide receiver. They could have had Jefferson, they could have had Brandon Iuke. So, I'm not big on the pick. I give it a C-. The Minnesota Vikings were the next team to select after the Philadelphia Eagles, as they had the number 22 pick after trading Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills for that pick, and they'd selected a wide receiver to replace Diggs as Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver out of LSU, was selected. I think this was a much better pick than what the Eagles did. I don't know much about him, but the LSU players were there were a lot of players drafted in the first round and in this draft, but I think it's a solid pick for the Vikings. I give it a B. So the 49ers, who originally had the number 31st pick, traded up with the Minnesota Vikings at number 25 to select a wide receiver. They select Brandon Iuke out of ASU. I think it's a good pick. I think when they were at 14, if they wanted to take a wide receiver, they could have taken Judy or Lamb. But I guess just being, considering defense is one of their biggest strengths, and they had a bigger hole to fill with the loss of DeForest Buckner. I think they just wanted to fill that hole first before they filled the other hole that they had at wide receiver with the loss of Emmanuel Sanders. But, being from Arizona and seeing what Brandon Iuke did this season and his time at ASU, he's a really good wide receiver. I think he's pretty underrated in this draft. I initially thought he was going to fall out of the first round potentially, but he stayed in the first round, and I thought the 49ers got a really good selection in him. Could have taken maybe a better receiver the 49ers could have done, but I think Iuke's a good player, and I give the grade a B. So the pick I nearly forgot to talk about was the number 26 selection, as the Green Bay Packers traded up with the Miami Dolphins. And the Packers shockingly pulled off a move that was eerily similar to the move that they pulled off 15 years prior when the Green Bay Packers selected Jordan Love, quarterback out of Utah State. This was shocking on many levels, and initially I liked the pick, but then I thought about it and I'm like, this pick doesn't really make any sense. Now, keep in mind, Aaron Rodgers is 36 years old, so he is getting up there. He's kind of on, I wouldn't say the back end of his career, but it's, the end's coming, it's not too far away from here. But Aaron Rodgers is still, I don't think he's in his prime, but he's still productive. I mean, the Packers were coming off, where they got to the NFC Championship, and they lost handily to the 49ers, but you would think they made the playoffs after missing the previous year or two. They got back there. Let's add some pieces, maybe a wide receiver, to put up with Devontae Adams, maybe something on defense, but they didn't address their needs initially, and that's going to be a very interesting locker room next year. And is Aaron Rodgers going to really? Is he gonna mentor Jordan Love? Which is this gonna be like a Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers type situation? Which I have no clue if it will be. But I give the grade a D. I don't think it's they should have addressed their needs now instead of the future. At number 28, the Baltimore Ravens selected linebacker Patrick Queen out of LSU. This was a player that fell in the draft and a little bit. And I think the Ravens got a great player. The Ravens, I think surprisingly last season had a really good defense, as they had the number one regular season record in the NFL before losing in the divisional round to the Tennessee Titans. But, they're going to improve their defense, and I think the Ravens got a really good pick here. And then at number 32, the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, selected Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back out of LSU. I give it a B-. I think they could have addressed defense, if you ask me, in the first round. especially with the position. I mean, they already have Damian Williams, who's a great running back. But in this offense, it's just not really a required position, if you ask me, because they have Patrick Mahomes, so they're going to be throwing 85 to 90% of the game, so they're not going to run that much. But maybe just they wanted some depth at the running back position as they've moved on from LaShawn McCoy. So in that sense, not a terrible pick, but I give it a B. What are your thoughts on the first round of the 2020 NFL Draft? Who were the winners and who were the losers? Leave in the comment section below. Click like if you'd like the video, and subscribe if you'd like the content on my channel. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you as my next video will be on rounds 2 through 3 of the 2020 NFL Draft.